Hi Year 8, I hope you're doing well and staying safe at home. This week's geography lesson is for the week beginning the 29th of June 2020. As always, we're going to start off with our Do Now activity. You've got 5 questions, all from different topics. Try and do them under 5 minutes and pause the video here to have a little go. Okay, so by now you should have had a little go at our Do Now activity. I'm going to put the answers on the board. Mark these as we go on, please. So we've got number 1. Give one reason why manufacturing rates are high in China. So the wages are low, production is very high because they're very hard workers, and there's less laws to do with working hours. And if there is laws, they're not really enforced, and therefore companies make more of a profit. Number 2 says give one problem Foxconn faced in China. There was very poor work and mental health, which was caused from long hours and poor working conditions. Because of this, there was really high suicide rates and it got really bad press globally. Number 3, it says, why is Dubai's reliance on oil unsustainable? Well, oil's eventually going to run out. It's a non-renewable resource. Because of this, places like Dubai and the UAE need to find other sources of income to sustain their economy, for example, tourism. Number 4 says name the continents of the world. Make sure you've got all 7 down and make sure they've all got capital letters. Number 5, name 3 countries in Asia. I've just listed a few, you could have got other ones, but the ones that I've put is India, China, Nepal, Bangladesh and part of Russia. Remember, they all need capital letters as well. So today is our first lesson on natural hazards. We're going to look at tectonic plates and how they move and look at some examples of tectonic plates as well. So to start off with, our Earth is split up into 4 layers. The outside layer is cracked like an egg, and that's the layer that we call the crust. The next layer underneath the crust is the mantle. So the mantle is where the molten rock, the molten lava, which is known as magma, is stored. We've got the outer core and we've got the inner core, which is the very, very centre of the Earth. Remember, we are standing on the crust. That is our layer, and it's split up like a cracked eggshell. And these plates move really, really slowly around the Earth. And just a little fact, they move at about 2.5 centimetres a year, which doesn't seem like much, but it does build up over thousands of years. So the crust of the Earth is broken up into many pieces called plates, which we know. The plates float on the soft mantle, which is located below the crust. There are 12 main plates on the Earth's surface, and there's 3 different plate boundaries and plate types. So we're going to look at those now. First of all, we need our key definition, which is convection currents. This is how the plates actually move. So convection currents are circular movements of magma within the Earth's mantle. So because this is just a recap from our lessons in school, I've already got a test for you here, which says place the correct statements next to the numbers 1 to 4. So you've got numbers 1 to 4, which is labelling our convection currents. The 4 statements are down below. I want you to read through them and try and match them up to the diagram. Pause the video here and have a little go. Okay, so by now you should have had a little go at matching those up. Remember, you've got your extra challenge here. So if you do want to pause the video again, have a little think about that. Fantastic, and make sure you email me your answers as well. So the answers are here, if you could mark them in red pen if you've got one on you. Number 1 is the heat source from the core. Number 2 is pointing out heated rock from the mantle, which is rising. Number 3 is showing semi-molten rock, which spreads out carrying the plate. So it's molten rock that's slightly cooled as it's got closer to the crust. And number 4 shows the magma, which is really cool now, which sinks back down to be reheated. Okay, so how do the plates move? Well, the plates move in 3 different ways. They move towards each other, they move past each other, and they also move away from one another as well, which you can see hiding behind there. So we're going to have a little look at what we call those, what forms there, and some good examples of places around the world on those plates. So our first plate is a constructive plate boundary. A constructive plate boundary means that 2 plates are moving apart from one another. As these plates move apart, magma rises to fill the gap through the cracks. So if we look at the image down here, I've labelled it. Number 1 is where the 2 plates, the oceanic crusts, are moving away from each other. And then because there's a gap in the middle, magma forms up, gets pushed up to form a filler to that crack. The crusts on each side of the boundary often have big cracks called faults in them. If the boundary is under the ocean, the lava cools when it reaches the surface and can construct new land. So, for example, the whole of Iceland and Hawaii were formed this way. Here on this plate boundary, we can get volcanoes, and sometimes you can get really small earthquakes, and there's some examples of places located on this plate boundary. Our next one is a destructive plate boundary, which we can see here. First of all, we've got a plate which is moving below another one. So it says an oceanic plate collides with a continental plate. When the 2 plates are forced to meet, the denser or the heavier one sinks into the mantle and melts. So we've got 2 plates which are meeting, they're coming together, and one, which is the heaviest and the most dense, is subducted, which sinks below the other. As it's subducted, the part which is in the mantle begins to melt. Because it begins to melt, there's a release of energy, and this energy is released often through volcanoes and through volcanic eruptions as molten magma is forced onto land through the crust. And there's an example there of the Pacific plate and the Eurasian plate as well. Our last one is the conservative plate boundary. So this is when 2 plates are sliding past one another. The 2 plates slide past one another and sometimes can get snagged, and the reason it gets snagged is because the plates aren't completely smooth, and when it gets snagged, pressure from friction builds up between those plates. So the plates are moving, get snagged, and pressure's building up. Now eventually that pressure is going to be overcome, so there's a sudden slip in the 2 plates, and this causes a huge amount of energy to be released, and this is the cause of an earthquake. So an example of this boundary could be the San Andreas Fault, which is in California, which is where 2 plates are meeting and sliding past one another. Okay, so lastly, we've talked about plate boundaries, we've talked about volcanoes that could be formed on there, or earthquakes. I want you to have a little think about what a tsunami is. In your book, your piece of paper, whatever you're using to work on, complete the following sentence. A tsunami is, and give me a quick definition of what you think one is. Okay, so by now you should have paused it and had a little go at writing down your definition of what a tsunami is. A tsunami is a giant tidal or harbour wave that strikes land at a height of as much as 30 to 40 metres and at a speed of 30 to 40 miles per hour. It can sometimes be quicker as well, so that's just an average. Now this links onto your going away task, because today I've spoken about earthquakes, I've spoken about volcanoes and what kinds of plate boundaries they're formed on, but I've not really mentioned about tsunamis. So your going away task is to read through the information about tsunamis and how they are caused. Once you've finished, click on test and check for your understanding. So if I just click on the link here, it should load on my laptop. So the link should bring you to this page. You're going to scroll down and read through all of the information under revise, which is 2 pages. Then once you've finished that, you're going to click test and complete the multiple choice questions on that information. So it is out of 10. So at the end of it, you click check score and then send me your scores via email. So I'll just put my email back up. So my email, tra@birkenheadparkschool.com. Send me those and I'll give you some feedback over email as well. If there's any questions or you need any more work, resources, or just want to pop in and say hi, feel free to contact me as well. Well done for completing this week's geography lesson, and I'll see you next week, Year 8.